When I was a kid, I was very afraid of pain. That's what it was. I was morbidly afraid of being hurt in any sense. Like, I couldn't. It took me so long to learn how to swim because I was scared of having water in my mouth and drowning. And so I couldn't. I failed to learn how to swim because I couldn't learn how to swim for fear of drowning. I mean, wrap your head around that one for a fucking second. All right. So I was very scared of just hurting myself in all sorts of scenarios. So I wouldn't have the confidence to do like skateboarding, for example. I used to skateboard quite a lot, but I was terrible at it. And one of the biggest reasons I was terrible at it is because I didn't have the confidence to be able to do stuff. So when I would like drop in a ramp, I would pussy out halfway through and go flinging myself backwards and like crack my head and be really hurt. And then the next time I'd be scared to do even that, so it would just be like a cycle of getting worse and worse and worse. Formation, thank you for the sub. I am also going to mute those notifications because this is going on YouTube, so shut up. All right, so one of the worst ways that this... Honestly, this might be the most scared I've ever been in my life. I don't scare very easily. I don't scare when I watch horror movies, particularly. I don't get haunted by stuff. I'm not particularly afraid of the dark or anything like that, or clowns or spiders or classic shit. But I've always been scared of pain, honestly. And this may be the most frightened I've ever been. I was wandering around in my attic. And there's a bunch of... My attic is all converted. It's all carpeted. And I must have been about 8 years old. Maybe 8 or 9 years old. And as I was wandering around in my attic, I stood on something sharp. And it was like a searing pain in my foot. And I was like, what the fuck is that? I looked down and my foot has a staple in it. As in, like, a staple had somehow been positioned perfectly, wedged in the carpet, so that it was like... In fact, I think I've got a staple here. Where's the staple? Prop. Oh, never mind. I did have a staple earlier. So it was like perfectly positioned like this, so that it had just gone skunk into my foot. And it had stapled my sock to my foot. And I put it like on the ball of my foot. No, on the heel, I think, actually. So I'd like stepped on it with my heel, and it had stapled the back of my sock to my foot. And I was looking at my foot, and I was convinced that I would never be able to get it out. But because my scared little brain just went bananas, I was like, oh my god, this sock is never going to come off my foot. They're going to have to cut chunks out of my foot to be able to get it out. They're going to have to kind of dig it out with a big sword thing. So I just panicked unbelievably. So I hopped downstairs whilst crying, just bawling my eyes out. Just bawling. Not because it hurt, because I was scared it was going to hurt when they pulled it out. That's how Papega I was as a young child. Is I would cry of the fear of pain way more than actually when I was hurt. So I went downstairs to my parents and I'm just sobbing, and they're like, what have you done? What have you done? I show them my foot and they just burst out laughing. They are in stitches at the fact that I've somehow managed to staple a sock to my foot. So I whacked my foot up on the couch and sat there with my mum, and I was shitting my pants. To say that I was frightened would be an unbelievable understatement. In my head, I had built this up like the staple had gone in, and you know as staples do, it had kind of hooked itself in. That's how staples stick to things, right? But all it had done is inserted itself. That was it. But because I was too scared to pull it out, I hadn't tried or even tested it. So I thought it had properly stapled this sock to my foot. So I was crying. As soon as my mum tried to pull it out, I was yanking my foot away, which made it rip as well. So now I had torn skin on my foot, and I was even more convinced it was going to be painful because I just ripped my foot away and made it painful. So, enormous Papega. Then she very carefully peeled the sock away. So now there was just my foot, dangly foot, and then a sock kind of not attached anymore, but with the staple in it. I think she cut down the front of the sock. And as she started pulling the staple out, I got more and more panicked, and all of these images are like flashing through my head of the fact that I'm gonna have to get it dug out, that it's gonna be incredibly painful, that it's gonna rip chunks of skin out, all of this kind of shit. I was a baby getting plasters off, like band-aids. Could not do those either as a kid. And in the end, I was crying and sobbing and shit, and she had the staple in her hand for ages, and she was just fucking with me as well. Like, the staple had already been out, and I was just crying and panicked, and she was just like, what are you crying about? The staple's been out for, like a minute. You've just been crying about the fact that it's still in there. And it still haunts me as one of the most frightened moments of my entire life.